And to continue the coverage of the Israel-Gaza war, the Ministry of Health in Gaza says 390 Palestinians have been killed and 734 injured in the past 2 days, while communications were suspended. This comes as the UN Security Council delays a vote on a draft resolution urging scaled humanitarian aid access to Gaza after another day of intense negotiations. There's more in this report.
The United States has signaled that it is ready to support a United Nations Security Council resolution after a week of diplomatic talks. The original draft was put forth by the United Arab Emirates mission to the UN on December 15, and it called for a cessation of hostilities and unhindered flow of aid into the Gaza Strip. It also said that the UN would exclusively monitor aid that enters Gaza through routes from outside states and called for an immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. Meanwhile, the Israeli army says it attacked a series of targets in Lebanon, including military sites and infrastructure belonging to the armed group. The air attacks come after the military said that a barrage of 24 rockets were fired from Lebanon towards southern Israel. The Israeli army says it has arrested at least 11 people during raids across the occupied West Bank. Military operations took place overnight in Beit Rima village and Dura. Palestinians across the occupied territories have seen an uptick in Israeli forces raids and mass arrests, with more than 4,600 people taken since October 7. While the world's eyes now rest on Gaza, the situation in the West Bank is getting progressively worse. This comes as some Palestinians report facing hardship, including harassment from the settlers. Meanwhile, revered as the birthplace of Christ, the town of Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank is usually bustling with thousands of pilgrims and tourists in December. A giant Christmas tree, parades and religious ceremonies typically inaugurates the season's celebration in the Nativity Square. But this year, none of these things are happening because of the Israel-Hamas war and economic hardship. The streets and courtyards in Bethlehem are largely empty. The roads leading to the city have been sealed off by Israeli forces, and several towns in the area have been violently raided by armed Israeli soldiers. Churches across Palestine announced the cancellation of all Christmas festivities in an expression of unity with Gaza, limiting activities to services and prayers.
Well, Global Affairs analyst Benga Onifade joins me now to discuss on the latest developments. Good to have you join us on the world now. We understand that the United States seem to be the main objector to this agreement. What may have changed in the meantime?
Well, good afternoon. Excuse me. So, yeah, we're talking about this war, which started on the, of course, provoked by Hamas on the 7th of October. And so far, we've had, based on reports from Hamas, we've had over 20,000 Palestinians killed. And I think, at the initiation of the war with 1,200, Israelis killed. Excuse me. So there's been a proponent from the UN Security Council for, an unadulterated ceasefire. And of course, it's been pushed back. And you're right, it's mostly because of the ally of Israel, of course, being the United States, the United Kingdom. But one of the key things people are looking for is, just, all boots on ground, no more killing, everything should stop at this minute. Because, we're looking at, well, not me, but the entire world is, saying, we've got a lot more women and children dying, number one. But what Israel is saying is that the fact that they keep discovering more tunnels, some of these things have not been officially verified. Israel says, we want to dismantle Hamas totally, while Hamas say, and of course they want hostages released. And Hamas, which has actually been, of course, described as a terrorist organization, are saying, no, we're not going to do any of these things except you totally stop the war. And of course, United States says Israel has got a right to defend itself. But yes, so far, things have changed because while Biden being the face of the United States of America, of course, he's had calls growing from right from different wings now, and they have to put pressure on him. Of course, they will not.
Mr. Olifade, well,
relationship.
some of the concerns that have been raised at this time is the fact that it's how difficult it has been to arrive at a resolution while millions of Gazans starved at this point. What were some of the factors that led to this point?
Well, so some of the factors is the fact that we do have this, should I say, bombing of the hospital, for example, and with Israelis, they found a very well extensive network underground the hospital, which Hamas said some of them has been denied by Hamas, and they said it was Hamas's found. But at the same time, one of the things is if you look at the war, this is not the first time this war's been started. If you go back, 10, 20 years ago, we just keep arriving at the same point. And of course, there has been a big call from I think it was authored by the UAE that, they want all these killings to totally stop. I mean, what has changed? Nothing has changed, really and truly, because if you realize, Israel is just going to, end the war. I mean, a few things have changed now. Israel have put on a few legislation saying, okay, they will be in charge of securities. And I think, from up there, people are agreeing, say, okay, you've got some of these things which you are trying to put in place. Some people think, okay, it's a continuous occupation, okay, but while you do that, how about, because Egypt wasn't opening the door before, but Egypt has opened the door now. Okay, now we will take on refugees, and a few other countries as well. We will take on refugees, but at the same time, this is just a huge humanitarian crisis, which Egypt itself cannot actually control. And again, I think recently the United States said they will stop, some of the funding to Israel, because at the end of the day, we are just supporting the killing. You've got to understand some of these things are thought well in advance. I mean, 2024 is an election year for
contrary to what you say about Israel promising to be in charge of security, we know that the Prime Minister Benjamin has vowed to continue fighting to the end, and it has also broadened its ground offensive ahead of the UN security vote today. Is there a possible hope that if this resolution is passed, both parties will adhere to it?
Oh, absolutely. There is. I think Hamas wants this war to stop. Israel, on the other hand, majority. I think for the first time now, you actually do have calls from Israeli side as well, and they are pushing for this war to stop, because at the end of the day, both sides are getting hurt, and we still do have some hostages, some of them in critical condition, which is still being held by Hamas. So yes, both sides are growing for the calls for the war to stop, but at the same time, but the key contact, which is the Benjamin Netanyahu, he did say, he wants to see it to the end. I don't think at the point of it there is an end to this war at all. I think the majority of the world now, including the world, major security councils, they probably will vote for this thing, for all hostilities to cease right in today, but at the end of the day, but it's just a temporary pause. It's a temporary pause. It's not a full pause. But again, so we're just going to go back to status quo. The war is going to continue. There will be a pause, and then of course, in future, do we see this thing stopping? At the moment, I think the key thing we should have been discussing as well, while we're trying to put a pause on this war, is what is the way forward. And the way forward right now is trying to get, I don't know the situation. I mean, I wouldn't say I know the solution. I don't want to pose to know the solution, because I'm not an Israeli citizen or from Palestine. But at the end of the day, people want a two-state solution where they could live side by side, hand in hand. So considering the votes, they passed through the votes, and that things will stop. But like I said again, it's a temporary hostilities, which they did. They had a 3-4 day pause last week, a couple of weeks ago. That happened, but then again, if it does happen again today,
all right, Mr. Olifade, I understand that you said it's a temporary call, but we also have a UN report of a possible famine in Gaza if the war continues. What does this say about the humanitarian situation there?
Unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. It has become an aid ground right now. You turn on your television everywhere at all, they're just raising money for Palestinians. But again, Israel are fighting a very small unit, which is not the entire Palestine. They're fighting Hamas, which is a very well organized. I think just about last night again, another underground network has been found, which they said is the head of the. As far as Israel is concerned, they want to take out the key heads who planned, who planned this initial conflict that started this initial attack. Israel want to take them out. Hamas is not giving them up, number one, and at the same time, Hamas is not. Hamas say we've got some cards, we've got some aces in our hands. So while this war continues, we've still got some of your hostages. Of course, Israel's got quite a lot of prisoners as well on the other side. On the other hand, but Israel is hunting. They're using all the resources in their hands. Yes, so you're right. It becomes a humanitarian crisis. Unfortunately, all these little weeks, they do suffer. But the key Hamas guys, they're very, very, very well. They're very well funded. Key people said Iran. Of course, based on intelligence from the United States and the key organizations out there, they believe Iran has funded them. But one more thing is the fear, which is for Hezbollah should not get involved, and that's one thing they've been preventing. But at the same time, right now, it's still Israel against Hamas. The war continues. There's going to be a humanitarian crisis. How worse can it get right now? It's only going to get a lot more worse than we see. But it's a temporary pause. United Nations, no matter where the vote goes, things going to get worse, except Israel decides to just put.
All right, Mr. Onifade, while we also focus on the humanitarian situation there, it's also important for us to, focus on the health conditions of the health workers themselves and also those involved in the evacuation process. But then let's wait for the outcome of the UN Security Council resolution before we make that analysis. Global Affairs analyst Benga Onifade joining me live to discuss on the Israel-Hamas war. Thank you for joining us on The World Now.